A story of wealth, power, friendship, and betrayal lies hidden behind all of Twitter's former chief executive officers, to the point where the original founder of Twitter is no longer known. You're wondering what could have led to this unpleasant turn of events. Well, stay tuned till the end of this video and we'll reveal why the Twitter founders betrayed each other. So, how did Twitter's journey begin? Well, welcome yet to another video from Finance with Eric. Leave a comment if you want to see more. Of course, subscribe and like this video too. It all started with a man whose plan to launch an audio podcast was about to fail. If the podcast had been a success, Twitter might not have emanated through him. The dream of Noah Glass was to start a company called Odeo. He developed a system that allowed users to call a number and have their voicemail converted into an online hosted MP3 message. Later, this idea for a voicemail system evolved into the podcasting platform called Odeo. One of the company's first investors was his friend, Evan Williams, who at that time had made a lot of money after selling his firm Blogger to Google. Evan had to become the CEO of Odeo as a condition of investing in the company, which Noah never really liked but had only accepted because he understood that it was financially beneficial. Odeo moved from Noah's apartment to Williams' residence. After that, Odeo rented an office and began hiring more people. Among them was Jack Dorsey, a web designer. In 2005, just as Odeo was getting ready to break out into the mainstream market, Apple announced that iTunes would incorporate a podcasting platform into every one of the millions of iPods people had. The employees of Odeo realized that Apple had just destroyed their company without giving them any prior warning. Clearly, the situation played out just like that. Evan Williams, the CEO of Odeo at the time, was now aware that the firm's future would not lie in podcasting. Therefore, that year, he instructed the company employees to begin conceptualizing other avenues in which Odeo could develop its business. Turns out that one of their new hires actually had a suggestion to keep the company afloat. That employee's name was Jack Dorsey. He had an idea that would transform Odeo from a firm that was unsuccessfully producing podcasts into a platform called Twitter that would make $1 billion and change the world. Jack's idea was centered around status. Funny enough, during the 2000s, the concept of a status update was all the rage. Social networking sites like Facebook and Foursquare were built entirely on the premise. Jack immediately began discussing the concept of status and how he was genuinely interested in it. In February 2006, Glass shared Jack's concept with the rest of the team. Now, as of this point, Noah's friendship with Evan and his marriage to his wife had already soured. Therefore, he viewed Jack's proposal as a means of fostering a sense of community, and it was this thought that brought the two of them much closer together. Following this thought, Noah looked up the word Twitter in the dictionary in an effort to come up with a name for the new project, although it was initially spelled as TWTTR. While Jack worked on the coding, Noah managed the Twitter project, the first iteration of Twitter as a social network centered on exchanging text messages. It may seem incomprehensible, but back then, the technology available could not keep up with the demands of instant social media. Evan Williams was dubious about Twitter's potential following the corporate presentation in February, but he appointed Glass as the project's leader. You'll probably agree at this point that Jack Dorsey had the original idea for Twitter. Jack even had drawings he did years before joining Odeo that resemble something that looks like Twitter, and it was quite clear that Jack played a pivotal role in the Twitter team. However, all the company's early workers and investors concurred that co-founder Noah Glass was the person at Odeo who was most passionate about Twitter in its early days. On March 21, 2006, Jack sent out the first ever official tweet when he tweeted, "Just set up my Twitter." As Twitter grew quickly, Noah was perhaps a bit too enthusiastic and revealed it publicly at a party before he was supposed to. As a result, they received a lot more traffic than they were prepared for, which many team members found frustrating. Noah became more outspoken about the fact that Evan should no longer be CEO. The two were entirely estranged from one another and held extremely different ideas of what the company ought to be. Noah told Jack they should strive to have Evan fired from his position. Since he had founded Odeo and Jack had the status idea on which they were now concentrating, Noah wondered why Evan was in charge. Noah was unaware that Jack didn't feel the same way. Evan, in Jack's opinion, was a better choice for CEO. One day, Evan asked Noah to go for a walk with him, and when they got there, Noah discovered that his greatest fears had been realized. Evan informed Noah of his termination. Unknown to Noah, Jack Dorsey, who he thought to be a buddy, was actually the one who wanted Noah out. Jack met with Evan Williams privately and threatened to resign if Noah wasn't fired. Later that evening, Noah and Jack crossed paths at a bar. Late into the night, a dejected Noah drank, and at one point he informed Jack that he had been let go. But Jack pretended as if he hadn't had any idea what was going on and pointed the finger of guilt at Evan. Noah expressed his hurt by saying, "I felt betrayed by my friends, by my company, by these people around me I trusted and that I had worked hard to create something with. I was a little shell-shocked. I was like, wait, what's the value in building these relationships if this is the result? So I spent a lot of time by myself and working on things alone." Soon after, Jack was promoted to the post of Chief Executive Officer at Twitter, while Evan was appointed chairman of the board. As of 2007, Twitter was expanding at an ever-increasing rate, and more users were signing up and tweeting daily. However, keeping up with all of this activity proved increasingly difficult. It's fascinating to see how diverse people had different conceptions of what Twitter truly was as it grew. Different people used it differently, but even within Twitter, the employees had different opinions. For instance, Jack Dorsey, the CEO, believed that Twitter should be used for broadcasting what was happening to you at the time. This was what he had originally envisioned when he proposed the status idea. However, Evan Williams, the company's then chairman, felt that it was more useful to communicate what was happening in the world, more of an information network than a social one. Evan was concerned that Jack was wasting a lot of Twitter's potential as a result. Evan was equally irritated that Jack was becoming increasingly preoccupied with his recently revitalized social life. Evening lessons in dressmaking were among the things that Jack was learning to do on the side. At one time, Evan told Jack that he could either become a dressmaker or the CEO of Twitter, but not both. Aside from this, Jack was doing nothing to address the regular site outages. He was solely focused on implementing new features and focusing on product development, to the point that he seemed to disregard a large number of other areas. Evan's frustrations with Jack reached a tipping point in 2008 when he realized that Twitter didn't even have a backup. This meant that if the database crashed at that time, they would have lost every single user and all of the tweets would have been permanently lost. At the time, things at Twitter were becoming more disorganized and chaotic. The other Twitter investors finally agreed when Evan persuaded them that Jack couldn't lead the company. Not long after, it was announced that Evan Williams would take over as Twitter's CEO in the place of Jack Dorsey. The change of roles between Jack and Evan was publicly revealed on Twitter, but the truth was that Jack Dorsey was completely unaware that this would occur. Dorsey was made an offer that included shares of the company, a sum of cash equal to $200,000, and the assurance that no one in the industry had to know that he was sacked. After being deprived of his power at Twitter, Dorsey launched a public campaign to promote the impression that he and Williams had traded positions. He did this by suggesting that Williams had been in charge all along. Dorsey completely excluded Glass from the involvement in the company's founding in dozens of interviews. He altered his Twitter bio to read "Creator." As a matter of course, Jack was peeved when he was demoted from his position as CEO to that of executive chairman. Hence, he conspired with investors to take revenge on Evans. Therefore, he provided the investors with various types of material about Evans' incompetence, to the point where the board began to question whether or not Evan was the appropriate person to assist Twitter in becoming a very profitable corporation. The board convened a meeting to discuss whether or not Evan should continue to serve as CEO, and Jack cast the deciding vote to have Evan removed from his position. Well, in conclusion, all three of the company's founders, Noah in 2006, Jack in 2008, and Evan Williams in 2010, were forced to leave the company by one another. These men were co-founders of Twitter and were once good friends. But everything changed as a result of a string of boardroom takeovers and backstabbing betrayals. Even though the investors chose Evan's friend Dick, who he hired to monetize Twitter, as the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey was promoted to the position of CEO of Twitter for a second time in 2015 after Dick resigned from his position. Although it appears that all three founders were attempting to do what they believed to be best, they each had their own ideas about what the company should be. Of course, this is only one side of the story, and we may never know the exact particulars of what transpired behind the scenes. But one thing is certain: no one person is solely responsible for creating Twitter. Without Noah, there would have been no company to begin with. However, without Evan, the company would have never received funding. And without Jack, they never would have thought of the status idea that became the foundation of what Twitter is today. Well, that's all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Let us know what you think about this topic in the comments. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video. Bye for now.